Try to hit record. Here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Tequila Tuesday, brought to you by Scotty's Little Sales Club and our good friends at Sendoso, who are officially our sending partner. So check them out if you haven't had a chance. Really excited today to talk to one of my new friends, Dan Goodman. Dan is the CEO and founder of True Commish. If you haven't been paying attention on LinkedIn, there is a movement where all of us who've been in sales and sales leadership are pushing for a little bit more transparency in all areas of the work that we do. And one of these areas in particular is how we get paid, when we get paid, why we get paid, and are we getting paid correctly? And you might not have ever thought about this before, or maybe you've been on the receiving end, but there are such things as commission errors. Some errors are made on accident by a finance person, by your sales manager or your VP, or even you. Some errors may or may not be so accidental. And Dan and his partner, Anthony, who's here. Anthony is the tech behind True Commish, and Dan is the founder and the mission and the evangelist and all this kind of stuff, the CEO. Dan is all about pay transparency for salespeople and sales leaders, and they've built an incredible tool, and that's what he's all about. So he's going to talk to us a little bit about the importance of commission transparency, verifying what you're earning, and all that kind of good stuff. So buckle up. Hope you've got some good questions prepared. He's going to make you think. He's going to walk you through a little presentation, and then as usual, kind of Q&A, and we'll go from there. So take it away, Dan.
Awesome. Great. Thank you for the introduction, Scott. I appreciate it. Great to be here tonight. We're all about helping salespeople verify their pay. I think that salespeople should have pay transparency when they work really hard to close a deal and are not paid on what they expect to be paid. I think there should be a reconciliation, and that the company should be responsible and liable to provide that to salespeople. You folks work really hard every day to close deals and make sacrifices on behalf of the company. And when you expect to earn a certain amount, when you close that deal and your customer agrees to it, the company should pay you on that amount. And if they don't, there should be a reconciliation and an explanation of why you're not being paid what you expected when you booked it. That's kind of what we're all about at True Commish. So I'll jump right into this. So a little background. So I have an undergraduate degree in finance and a master's at MBA in entrepreneurship and marketing. And I have had friends and family who've been sales reps for a long time, going back 25 years. And I have helped them identify and recover hundreds of thousands of earned but unpaid commissions and resulting bonuses and President Club trips. So initially it was a hobby. I love to make financial models, and I love to question things. It's just kind of how I was raised, and it's kind of what's in my blood. When someone tells me something, I don't just rely on blind faith and trust that it's right. I want them to back it up to me, and I like to question things, and that's just how I've always been. So when I've got a friend or a spouse or a relative or a coworker who's getting a big commission check, I offer to check it for them. And when I did so, it was shocking on how frequent and the significance of the errors that were found. And I have a lot of years of experience doing this. We'll talk through some different examples, things to look out for, both with comp plans and with pay structures. So after helping friends and family for 25 years, I've always wanted to do my own thing. I'm one of these guys that's either always on or not. There's really very little in between with me. And, it works great in the startup world, not so gratifying in the corporate America. But it's sort of been this passion project of mine. I've with the MBA in entrepreneurship, I've always wanted to do my own gig. And I really feel that we found something here, that these errors are happening left and right, and salespeople are the ones who suffer as a result of that. There's no support, there's no solutions, there's no systems. You could get a commission check or a draft from your sales manager, and you're told, hey, you've got 24 to 48 hours to check this over, or else you lose the opportunity to question it. That couldn't be further from the truth. It's the legal obligation of the company to pay you fully and accurately. And there's no time frame associated with that. And this is just sort of one example of how companies sort of pressure folks and to not want to question things, or to sort of that bullying mentality and tactics. So, I took long walks in the woods for a long time, getting exercise and thinking and focusing. And I finally figured out a way that we could build this application And in order to do so, we didn't want it to be, a complicated professional services engagement every time we did it. We wanted to do it so lots of reps could get benefit from this. So the question is how do we automate a service that can onboard any sales rep in any industry, regardless of complexity of comp plan? So it took a long time to come up with it. And thanks to my business partner, Anthony Topper, who's just an absolute genius when it comes to taking an idea and bringing it to reality, we've been able to build out this application. So any sales rep in any industry right now can come on, load up, answer some questions about a comp plan, and load up some information about, what they expect to be paid when they book it, right out of their CRM, and some commission information either out of an Excel spreadsheet, an ERP system like an invoicing system, or directly from commission software. And with that, instantly we can identify deals that reps were not paid what they expected to when they booked the deal. So we launched True Commish a couple of years ago. We're onboarding customers right now, and people are finding pay errors left and right. So Anthony put this little cartoon up of the superhero. I would not do that or call myself that, but I guess a lot of people have been saying that lately. I kind of consider myself a self-anointed commission guru. Been doing this for a long time and helping a lot of reps, and I get great gratification from finding pay errors and helping salespeople identify and recover those. So that's a little background on True Commish and myself. So the question is, why should you check your pay? I mean, believe it or not, you would be shocked. I would say that a majority of all sales reps who receive commission don't even check it. They, at best case, they may look at a commission statement, eyeball it for 30 seconds and say, yeah, these couple of big deals that I was expecting look about right, and call it a day. And that they're literally relying on blind faith and trust that their pay is accurate. And I don't know about you, but if you're working that hard and making those sacrifices on a regular basis, I don't want to rely on blind faith and trust. Errors happen all the time. And I don't want to be the one who is on the short end of the stick when those errors happen. So, you guys, you work really hard to earn your paycheck, and you deserve everything that you earn. And I'm here to help you identify those deals that don't look like you were paid fully and accurately, and help, for you to advocate for yourself and to recover those money. So the other thing I want to say is it's your right to check. I mentioned previously that it's the employer's obligation to pay you fully and accurately, but it's also your right to check. So, companies should not be denying you access to data so that you can check it. They shouldn't be using intimidation tactics or bullying tactics to, make you question yourself. I've heard so many different stories from reps over the years. There was a rep that was looking to be able to check their data. The company never even provided them a commission statement. So they requested the data, and they're like, who are you? You've only been here for like 4 or 5 months. Why is there nobody else in the company asking for this data? Don't you trust us? Are you planning on being here for a long time? Are you part of the team? And instantly you start to question yourself, like, oh boy, what did I do? Am I long for this job? Are they putting me on this list that they're gunning for me just because I want to check my pay? It's wrong, and it's your right as a rep to stand up for yourself and to question your pay, to have access to that data and to check it. And frankly, I think it's criminal that employers don't already provide this to reps. And it's kind of sad that I have to step up and do this on behalf of reps. The companies are the ones who already have this data. If they wanted to present it in this way, they could, and potentially eliminate the need to ever check. If a company provided the rep with reporting from initial booking or closed one to implementation to invoicing, and then collections if you're paid on it, and then commission, and then any time it was different from bookings to payout, they highlighted that and explained the variance, and you could just look at it on a report. The rep would spend 5 minutes a month looking at that and be done. Instead, they're spending so much time worrying that if it's right, and sort of the mental anguish associated with that. There are no solutions for reps to try to do this. There's no automation for them to do it. They're stuck trying to figure it out on their own. It's almost like a game that employers play sometimes, it's very frustrating for me to see how things frankly appear to be getting worse over time rather than better. So I believe that there's been a lot of changes in society that have taken place over the last 3 or 4 years. I think it initially started with transparency with policing, with body cams. And, with that, there was a call for fairness and equality in society. The Black Lives Matter movement came out of that. I think there's been a shift in the power dynamic from the employer to the employee with the Great Resignation, the quiet quitting, the demand for remote work. And, and also there's been, pushing down and eliminating that bullying mentality that we've seen with Harvey Weinstein and the Me Too movement that's really spreading throughout society. So people are standing up for themselves. They're questioning things. They're not afraid to question things any longer. They're demanding fairness and equality and pay transparency. And I'm looking to bring this to salespeople through True Commission, what we're building. And hopefully companies will follow suit, utilize solutions like True Commission in-house, or provide this level of reporting to their sales folks that they have the ability to do today that they choose not to. So the time is right for this to change. So the dilemma for the salesperson, they're pulled in like 15 different directions. Everybody wants a piece of the salesperson's time, whether it's your coworkers, your management, subordinates, your friends, your family, your dog, your kids, your hobbies. You're pulled in all kinds of directions, and there's very limited time, and your time is very valuable. So, anything you can do to get back some of your time is very useful exercise to do. So the question is, do you check your pay? We've already came to the conclusion that you should be. If you are, that's great, but how much time are you spending doing it? There are lots of instances where I'm sure that, there's very straightforward comp plans with one quota and a single rate and with some escalators. Maybe you're doing a half a dozen deals a month. I'm sure you could probably do that and not take a lot of time. But I think that those instances are not really the norm. And what I'm seeing is that there are these crazy complex comp plans that are out there. I got a 36-page one that someone asked us to review the other day that didn't have any commission rates in it. I mean, reps are coming to me left and right, not understanding how they make commission or how they are incented in their comp plan. It's really a failure on leadership and rev ops and managers to not sit down with the reps and go over this and make plans that are easy to understand. Now, if you're not checking your money, your pay, I can pretty much guarantee you that at some point in time, maybe not this current month or this quarter, but at some point in time, you've lost money on a deal. And it's just what I've seen. Alyssa, you've got a question? Please unmute yourself and jump in.
I do. Hi, Dan. You're hard to interrupt because it's also helpful, but I would like to know the guidelines around I'm struggling with this right now on getting clarity around my comp plan and what is legally owed to us and kind of how to approach the conversation. I often face criticism of spending too much time fighting over commission.
There's that intimidation tactics.
Yeah. Well, so I'll pause there, but just kind of if we could get some of your thoughts on how to approach this swiftly, I think that would be really great to hear your perspective.
Absolutely. So I would look at it in sort of two buckets. The first one is the comp plan itself. You don't have any real say over what the company decides to implement for a comp plan. If you don't like it, you can leave. You can voice your concerns. You can share how you're unhappy with it. Maybe there's other reps in the company that feel the same way, and potentially you could voice your concerns as a group to your company. But ultimately, the comp plan is the comp plan. The company can decide what they want to do with it. The area where the company, can be in the wrong is where you are checking your commissions and you're finding pay errors. And now it's like, how do I approach the company? So the first thing that I would do, and I've been doing this for a long time for reps, and we're happy to help you as well, is I would identify the deals specifically where you think that you're not being paid accurately. And then I would put together a list of those deals. What I typically would do is do a first pass myself. So in our system, within our application, each rep has their own data warehouse of every deal they've ever done, that you can recreate your commissions and booking statements and things like that. And when you look at a deal that shows that you weren't paid what you expected versus, when time to get paid versus when you booked it, I would go back and look quickly in your system and not really spend more than a minute or two. Just look up into your CRM or your commission software or wherever you're getting this information and see if something else happened. Was the deal canceled? Was it downsized? Was it reduced? Was it ever invoiced to the customer? Did a different rep get credit for it? Did the credit go to a house account? And then once you've done that first pass, because there could be some areas where, there are underpayments, but there's a reason for it and it's okay. But more often than not, it's not okay. And once you've sort of reduced that list to things that you've done some initial research on, and you're fairly confident that there are errors, I would then go and present that list to your accounting department and then ask them that you've done the first pass of research and that you believe that you've been underpaid for these deals and you'd like to get paid on it and get a response from them. Once the accounting department actually agrees on some of these errors, they've now exposed themselves to liability. They must act immediately, like that day, and send you home with a manual check, or they would be exposing themselves to triple damages and potential employment litigation. And virtually every time that I've worked with a rep who got money back, the accounting department or the CFO is like, oh yeah, we'll true you up in the next pay cycle. But when it comes to the CEO and they hear about what's happened, they realize the liability and they're demanding that you get cut a manual check that day. So Alyssa, does that help? Is there anything else you'd like me to comment on from that question?
No, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Okay. And more than happy to have these take this offline as well and have further detailed conversations. So
Awesome. Thanks.
thanks. And no, and everyone else, please jump in with questions. I'd much rather have this than me talking and hearing myself talk for 30 minutes, no matter how much I like to hear it. So please. Just to finish up on this slide, the bottom line is that every rep should check. Companies are making it harder and harder to check. They're making the data less accessible. They're making the comp plans harder to understand. And, reps, need help with this. And that's really why, I've created True Commission to help reps figure this out. So, and, I want to talk about the mental anguish because this really is an impactful thing. I mean, when you're a rep and you literally dedicate your life to your company and you make sacrifices left and right, and you're missing kids' sports events or dance recitals or dinners with the family so that you can work on that deal and close it. You feel good when that deal gets closed and it comes in, but why should you have to fight for your money after the fact? You're fighting in the marketplace against your competitors. You're working with your customer to get them the best deal and close that deal at the end of the rainbow there. So now you get to fight for your money that you work so hard to earn. So, when you lack pay transparency, when a rep can't validate that they're actually being paid right and have to rely on blind faith and trust, it causes doubt, about, how the company does things. I mean, in a lot of companies, they're doing this stuff manually with Excel spreadsheets, which are prone to human error, so you're likely going to find errors. So now you're starting to mistrust the company because you're living up to your end of it and they're not living up to theirs. And, when you have mistrust, it just destroys loyalty and motivation and retention and it creates a negative corporate culture, which can just bring the company down. And, I just feel that it should be more of a two-sided relationship and companies should understand what their reps are going through and the challenges that they have, both at work and in their lives with all the demands on their time. And they should go out of their way to make things easier for the reps and to reward them when they close big deals. And instead, what I'm seeing is the opposite. There's this game that's being played around this. So that's just what I want to touch on and sort of the mental anguish that reps sort of carry this around with when there is doubt. And you're talking about human emotions. Money is a key driver and trust is a key human emotion. When you start questioning these things, it really impacts you. So I want to talk a little bit about complex comp plans and what we're seeing. Like I said before, the trend is getting worse. I'll kind of combine this. I mean, I have a slide later on that talks about, commission software and, why it's good and why it's not so good. But what I'm seeing is complex comp plans are becoming more frequent. You're seeing multiple categories with multiple tiers and escalators and quotas and spiffs and these, we just worked with a rep that works for a large, publicly traded marketing automation firm. And, it's a low transaction value, high transaction volume setting. So a lot of deals every month. They literally get paid a different commission rate on every single deal they sell. There's 5 different variables that impact the rate up and down and 19 sub-variables underneath those 5. So for a total combination of 500 different rates that could be applied per deal in a high transaction volume setting, it's literally impossible to check. The company is running blind themselves. There are massive errors going in both directions, and they use commission software, and they feel emboldened to create these crazy comp plans because the liability is on the commission software provider to hold up their end of the deal that they're collecting 6 figures from the company for, to build out the back end to match the front end of the plan that you guys are working against. It's outrageous. So, you know, what we're building out all this functionality so that we can handle these complex plans. As I mentioned before, Anthony built out this variable rate by deal piece of the thing. You know, we're doing, you know, separating transactional deals from recurring deals. We can handle it. If you sell 20 different products and have a different quota for all 20 of them with different rates and escalators, our system can handle that, replicate your comp plan, and then provide, and then where you are within your year in terms of your performance against your plan, calculate your commissions and your errors based on that. So it's real money coming your way. So examples of pay errors, I think that you guys will enjoy this. So I'll give a few of each of these things. Any questions from anyone?
Dan, Scott here. I dropped my question in the in the Zoom link real quick. I'm wondering if you can expand upon the differences between some of the traditional, like, built for company commission softwares like a quota path or exactly these types of things, because I think a lot of salespeople think like, oh, my company has this, like, I'm protected, I'm safeguarded and whatnot. Can you talk a little bit maybe just about the differences? I'm not asking you to like sell against anybody or bash anybody, but like there's a very distinct difference, and I think it'd be interesting.
No, absolutely. In fact, I had this, Anthony put all these wonderful images on this deck, and so I gave him liberty to rework it a little bit. So he put the commission software slide more towards the end, which is what I was getting to, but I'm going to go jump there right now. Actually, it's the next slide. Let me jump here right now, and then we'll go back to the examples. Thank you for that question, Scott. And I see that there's more questions in the chat now too that I will take a look at because I'm so focused on what we're doing here right now. But I love commission software. It adds great value if you're an accounting clerk that manually sits here with Excel feeds and tries to create commission statements for many, many reps every month. It's a friggin' nightmare. But it's built for accounting clerks. It's really what it was intended for initially. And there's this, and when I was doing this manually for folks, God, I wish there was accounting software that existed so that I didn't have to sit here and manually cross-reference hundreds of deals from the bookings report to the commission file and compare what they expected to be paid versus what they actually were paid. So I see a lot of value in commission software. The problem that I have with it is that it's a very fragmented industry. There's probably 20 to 25 different commission software companies out there, and they primarily do one thing. They automate commission statements. And there's sort of this misconception that's being put out in the marketplace that they, provide pay transparency, because now reps have a shiny dashboard that they can see what their commission check will be in 2 weeks. And it's the same view that they were getting of the same data when they were getting a static Excel spreadsheet. The month closes, you don't see a commission statement for a month later, and then you get your check. It's there. You're just now can see it on a dashboard, maybe a week or two before you would see it, in an Excel spreadsheet when the accounting department gave you. So there's this misconception that reps think that they're all set because now I can see what my check's going to be. And now I have a dashboard and things like that. Oh, I got a hand raised here. All right. Clayton, jump on in.
Hey, Dan, I was just curious. I don't know much about this, how commissions work and how many times there are errors. Maybe I fall in like an ignorant category here, but how often would you say that commissions are off at a typical, like in a typical payroll period?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really answer that because I have a Yeah, I mean, I can't really answer that. I'm not just going to guess off the top of my head. Obviously, when people are coming to us, I mean, we're finding errors every time. You know what I'm saying? And they can fall into any one of like 6 or 7 different types of errors or categories of errors. In general, do I think the majority of commissions, like if you say there's 10 million salespeople in America who all get commissions, I would guess that more than half of them are getting paid fully and accurately. I mean, just as a guess, there are plenty of settings where there are relatively simple plans and in settings where you could probably check them without too much of an effort. But there's a ton of scenarios where that's not the case. And, salespeople are getting the short end of the stick here. So when I'm working with reps, I'm literally finding errors every time, but I can't tell you if that happens 100% everywhere. I'm sure it's not. Another question I would just add to your question, Clayton, is that I don't believe that companies in general are trying to screw reps out of commissions. I think that they discourage them from checking. I think they would rather have them spending their time looking at the next deal, looking forward, rather than looking backward at the deal that they already did. That way they can earn more and the company can earn more. And I think that they go out of their way to make it difficult for the reps to check. But I also think that there's some scenarios that exist, and I've seen it personally, where there are some not good players that are doing some funny things with commissions that, frankly, if there was really a spotlight put on them, it could be considered highly illegal. John, what do you got for me?
I just wanted to make a comment as a guy who's built a lot of revenue plans and dealt with this a lot. If you're a revenue leader, make friends with your CFO in your finance department early on before you implement new comp plans. And these, in my humble experience, the more complex the comp plan, the more your life and their life becomes a nightmare. You want to keep things very simple. Reps are going to find a way to work a plan. And the main goal should always be, let's keep our incentives aligned properly. So what's good for the company is good for the rep, is good for everybody. It's when you start to get a little bit too cute and a little bit too tricky that everything goes to hell. And if you think about it, some of the software is very good, some of it's not so good, but you've got a lot of people doing, translating from Excel to this, to that, to this. That's an area for a lot of mistakes. You start moving a lot of data around, you're going to have leaks and you're going to have mistakes. And if you get mistakes that become big numbers by the end of the year, then you're going to start hitting morale in sales. Nobody does it on purpose, but it's just, keep it simple, always. It's just whenever you're building compensation plans, keep them as simple as you possibly can. And, to Scott's point, how do you convince a founder is sit down and walk them through it. What do we really want our people to be rewarded for? We want them to be rewarded for helping build our business. So let's make sure we understand what we believe that is. I believe it's increasing sales. Let's not start getting tricky by having different commission plans for 13 different items. If you want to do a spiff for X, Y, or Z, fine, we can do that. But let's not get nuts on this stuff. It's just going to cause problems.
Great point, John. I appreciate that. Just to comment back on a couple of points you made. So I think that there's this dynamic between the sales leaders, especially more of the junior ones, and the rev ops and the finance department. The rev ops are chartered by the CEO and the executive team to reduce the cost of sales each year, right? And you want to do it in such a subtle manner that it doesn't cause the reps to get upset or run for the door. But you need to have enough of a change where it's impactful to the bottom line. So oftentimes that sales leader is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place on what they're going to do with that. I mean, I've seen, and that's the reason why you have these complex comp plans, John, is that they're built intentionally to trick the rep into thinking they're all set. I had a call with someone today. I don't remember who it was because I had about 7 calls today, but they literally told me that a new VP of sales came into an organization, brand new, and instilled a new comp plan mid-year. And the headline was, is that your commission rates are going up across the board. And everyone's like, hey, great, that's awesome. What a great guy, what a leader. And then when they got the 15-page document, guess what? They're no longer paid on revenue. They're paid on gross profit. So the base that the commission rate's being applied to just went down by 40 or 50%, and their rates went up by 10 or 20%. But that was not the headline. And they had to actually read the document to actually figure that out. Talk about burning the bridge of trust in day one for that leader. So I just want to respond to that point. Anyone else before I continue? All right, I'm going to talk a little bit more about commission software. So I talked about how much I love it and what it does and what it was intended for, and now it's being sort of repositioned. I mean, I've seen commission software companies out there on my thread, on other threads, talking about how they provide pay transparency. And, I'm calling them out when they're jumping on my thread about it because it's literally the same view that the reps got before. And when they try to position it as something different, it's literally misleading. And I take offense to that because I don't like reps being misled or lied to, especially when it comes to their money. So, with commission software, I think, like I mentioned earlier, companies feel more emboldened now to create these crazy comp plans. I've been tracking this stuff for 20 years. I can tell you it's getting worse, not better. I don't think 30-page comp plans existed before. I don't think a rep should have to work to figure out how they're paid. Actually, I want to transition right here for another quick moment. I want to talk about a tool that we've built called the Comp Plan Comparison Tool. And there's 4 applications for it. And it really talks very nicely to the RevOps leader and the sales manager that we've talked about a little bit on this call. But before I jump into that piece, I want to talk about what we've initially built it for. So if you're an individual, because I'm all about the rep, I'm all about empowering the rep in every setting, whether it's an individual rep trying to make sure they're paid right, whether it's a rep in an SMB setting or a rep within an enterprise setting. I'm all about the rep. So, for example, in the enterprise setting, let me jump to the Comp Plan Comparison Tool. So if you're a rep and your manager comes to you and says, hey, Steve, I think you're really going to like this plan, the new plan for next year. I think you're going to make more money on it. And now when you look at it, it's apples to oranges. Everything changed from one year to the next. The rates, the escalators, the tiers, the categories, it's completely different. You have no idea if you're going to make more or less. You need a PhD in comp plans and commissions just to attempt to figure it out. I mean, I've literally done this exercise dozens of times over the years. It takes hours of my time, and I know how to do this stuff really well. So we have built an automated tool now that will literally take last year's plan, look at this year's plan, and tell you for the same level of performance, how much more or more likely less you'll make in real dollars, commission dollars, and as a percent. And if you want to make the same amount as you did last year, how much more will you have to sell? So these are the variables that I think a rep really wants to know about when they're evaluating a plan. And if you're a rep that's looking to leave your company for whatever reason, and you're interviewing and you're ready to sign on the dotted line, rather than just jumping blindly, ask the manager to see the comp plan. Take the comp plan, plug it into our system, compare it to the plan that you're leaving, and see if the grass is really greener at the new place. I bet you a lot of reps actually aren't going to jump ship once they really figure it out. But they're literally relying on oftentimes blind faith and trust that what they're hearing is correct and reasonable and achievable, when maybe it really isn't. 2 other use cases that we've come up with that I think are fantastic is that you're a sales manager and you've got some younger reps that you're working with and you're showing them the new comp plan that came out. And unfortunately, not enough reps do this, but I am seeing a trend that some of the younger leaders are starting to do this, which is great. Sit down with the rep, use the comp plan comparison tool, show them how the comp plan is built from the inside out, rather than just showing them from the outside in. Tell them where the drivers are and the escalators and where they can, focus their attention. Run scenarios with our tool to show how much money they'll make if they sell at certain levels for certain different products. If you're a RevOps leader and you're looking to come up with a new plan this year, wouldn't it be great if you could see how if you tweak a plan slightly here or there, how it will impact the individual rep at different seniority levels and how it will impact the sales department as a whole? So if I make this change on this rate or this escalator or this what have you, what will it mean across the sales force? And how does that impact the bottom line to the company? So these are 4 different use cases for this comp plan comparison tool that we've come up with. And the feedback on it's been great so far. I'm going to go back, actually, before I jump into examples of payers, let me see if there's anything in the chat that we should go over here. All right, Dale, thank you, appreciate it. Feel free to interrupt. Alyssa, we already got you. Yes, John, this is crazy, it's sad. Little comp plans, we got that. Okay, we covered that. Ryan Walker, thank you. How do we make money? That's a great question, Jessica. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Right now, we're sort of doing this out of the goodness of our heart. It's a new category. I don't think you'll find any companies or people doing what we're doing anywhere. So we're trying to educate the market. We're trying to build out our functionality. We want to try to make it a self-service app so that any rep can go into any industry and find these pay areas on their own. Right now we're providing a lot of hand holding and helping where needed, but reps are also going through the process themselves and getting and it's helping them very much. At some point we will monetize the platform. We also are looking to sell this into the enterprise as well. We see this as a great service for a sales manager. I mean, I don't know how many sales managers are out there, but from what I hear, every month there's a line out the sales manager's door complaining about pay errors when commissions come out, complaining about pay errors, complexity of comp plans, lack of responsiveness from the accounting department. It just literally destroys morale, productivity, and key employee retention. So if I'm a sales manager and I can gift a free True Commish account to each of my reps to eliminate this negative conversation and say, hey, we're going to give you this independent third-party verification service. We'll verify that you're being paid fully and accurately on every deal that you sell. And if there are any deals that pop up that appear that you weren't paid right, we as a company will work with you and True Commish to make sure you're paid on it. We've just eliminated the constant complaints about the comp plan and the errors and how much time it takes to check, if we can even check it at all, both with the manager and amongst reps themselves. And then another thing that we're looking to do is sort of provide this at like an EVP of Human Resources, Chief People Officer level, where you can actually have this as a retention and recruitment tool. It could be part of an employee benefits package, just like you may get a free or discounted legal Zoom account or a 401k match. You can have a free access and account to True Commish so that you have end-to-end pay transparency. That when you're joining our company, you don't have to worry about this here. You don't have to spend time checking or worry that you're not being paid fully and accurately. And eventually, as we scale and it becomes more prevalent everywhere, companies can put the True Commish seal of approval on their website as a retention and attraction tool. So that's what we're doing there. Let me talk a little bit about examples of payers. So we worked with a rep recently. They, had 35 deals that they closed through 9 months of the year, just absolutely killing it. They look like they're on their way to a $300,000 a year. Of those 35 deals, they were literally paid to the penny, exactly right, on every deal they were paid on, 27 of the 35. There were 8 deals that they hadn't been paid yet. That's what we call our open order database. At True Commish, we track every deal that you do, from booking all the way through. So if there are deals that you're not getting paid on, we don't need to search for them or wonder how we're supposed to know what we don't know, So there were, of those, 7 or 8 deals that they weren't paid on, 4 or 5 of them were current, 0 to 30 days, maybe a couple 30 to 60. Let's give them time to finish, taking care of what they need to. But 2 of these deals were literally over 6 months old. And one of them was for almost $100,000 that rep was owed a $13,000 commission check on. If you could see the look on the rep's face when it popped up in his open order database in the True Commish account, he practically turned white. He couldn't believe it. He thought for sure he was paid on it. And sure enough, he wasn't. And his company was, happy to, apologize. It was a manual error on one of the accounting folks' part. And they made him whole immediately and apologized, and all was good. But it just shows the need to check. This variable rates by deal that we talked about, where the rep is getting paid a different rate on every deal. I mean, how do you check that? You can't. I mean, we literally found $20,000 in pay errors going over a 12 to 18 month period for this one rep. And we're in the process of, because it's so complicated, the rep is now trying to go back and manually check a handful of these deals before his company will actually jump on this process and respond. And we're working with some senior level managers at that company, as well as the individual reps. I'll give you some more examples. A company a salesperson leaves a company, and now you inherit their account. And a month into you inheriting their account, there's a return, and you were never paid the commission on the initial sale. Now the accounting department sees that you own the account. They're going to now try to hit you with the clawback on the return of the product and hit your commissions, even though you never paid on it in the first place. I've seen that happen multiple times. Misclassified deals, right? If Carla, you have a question? No?
No.
Okay. Misclassified deals. I've worked with reps with very complicated comp plans. They get paid, have a different quota with escalators and tiers and rates for hardware, software, for managed services, professional services, training, telecom. Each one has their own quota. Each one has escalators and tiers. So we were working with a rep. They had just had an incredible year, but they were coming up short on their professional services. So it was a $5K bonus for each of these categories, and then a $25K bonus if you met all of the categories. So the rep was short on their professional services by a small amount, like $2,500 or something. Some unethical reps would literally put in like a fake deal and paid that money out of their own pocket because by achieving that, they literally would have gotten a $30,000 bonus for this $2,500 professional services deal. But the rep that I was working with was very, very ethical and would never do such a thing. Although it was suggested, just the way that it was treated. So anyway, we went through all of their deals, a lot of transactions. We went one by one, and we found about a half dozen deals that were classified as managed services that should have been professional services. And we also saw a ton of hardware and software deals that they bundled the professional services, the implementation, the installation into the hardware software category, even though there were professional services dollars associated with it. So we identified those deals. The rep ended up making quota for professional services. Then they made the quota for all the categories, and they got over $30,000 in bonuses as a result of doing this that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So, I mean, I could go on and on and on and talk about examples of times that we've helped reps recover 5 figures in commission errors. Like I said before, the problem isn't getting better, it's getting worse. And the need to check is even more so. And the fact that you have commission software helping you, isn't helping you. It's helping the accounting clerks save manual time and effort. And it's giving you a little bit of transparency about what your expected commission check is, but it's the same check and the same calculations that already existed before. I'll give you one more with crossing tiers. We found a rep recently $12,000 in commission errors, and it was just on one deal. The rep literally only had about 8 or 12 deals for the year, wasn't an Excel whiz, didn't really like working spreadsheets, didn't really understand the comp plan. They had one large deal that crossed over 3 tiers. So from their initial tier, that passed them right through the next tier and then into the 3rd tier. They also, this big deal was a 3-year recurring revenue deal. And with the 3-year contract, the rep was supposed to get a 50% commission bump on that rate. Neither was done because the company does this manually, and the accounting clerk failed to make the adjustments for this deal that crossed over the tiers. It was literally $12,000 in underpayment. So they got paid some money for it, but they were underpaid $12,000 associated with this one deal, just from a simple error of crossing tiers and applying a bump or a spiff for a 3-year contract. So there can be complex scenarios. They can be simple scenarios. Errors happen all the time. They happen every day. And you guys should be checking this, either yourselves if you can, or we will be happy to help. Let's see what else we got here.
Hey, Dan.
Yes.
Hey, taking questions. First of all, great work. This is, it seems like high necessity. I was late to sales and only been, a handful of 10 years and have run into pay difficulties more than one would imagine. Is all your work rep focused? At what levels, at every level where there's a commission element, do you find errors? First question. And also you mentioned that the liability fell to the software provider if there was a disparity, but it seems like I didn't understand, I don't know much about this to begin with. But it seemed like liability would always fall with the employer, but there could be something else going on. So I wanted to get a little more insight into that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, ultimately, like before there was commission software, the companies would put together a comp plan, they would provide reporting, and they were expected to pay reps fully and accurately. And if there were errors, they had to make it whole. And if they didn't, they were exposing themselves to liability. So what's happening now is that instead of the company being responsible for building up the back end to make sure that the reporting is accurate so that the reps are getting paid correctly and being able to report on that correctly, they've now hired commission software companies to do this. So now they're creating more crazy and complex comp plans than they ever did before. And ultimately, the liability has been transferred from the company to the commission software because it's literally their job to build this out accurately. And the company is relying on them to fulfill that. What was your first question, William?
Wherever there is, because there is a rep from SDR to wherever that will have commission as a portion, and you see shenanigans at every level. It seems to me it's shocking how much it makes it difficult to be in straight sales to begin with. But at what levels did you see these kind of disparities at every level of commission based?
Yeah. I got your question. I think that what we're doing here is important to salespeople in every level. whether it's a SDR, BDR, AE, enterprise AE, sales manager, director, VP, RevOps leader. Because ultimately, everyone is getting paid some way, somehow on the performance and sales of the company.
Mhm.
Whether it's a VP with a bonus or a manager with an override on everything the reps make, everyone should want to have it, be correct and accurate and make sure that they're benefiting from it. Maybe at the CRO level, they're getting paid on profitability, and there may be other drivers there as well. But in general, everybody wins with pay transparency. William, you sort of led me right into this last slide here. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I'm here for you, sir. Thank you, I appreciate
Absolutely. I mean, as far as where the errors come, the bigger the deals, the longer the sales cycle, the more line items in the deals, the more opportunities for errors. I think there's less with like SaaS that I'm seeing. I think the errors are more happening on like the rates applied per deal. That like when you're dealing with like SaaS and recurring revenue and things like that, it's kind of hard to screw up that number. It's kind of a known thing. But companies are coming up with these really complex comp plans and applying all these different rates for different scenarios for each deal. And now it's a question of, is this rate that's being applied correctly? And why is it so hard to calculate that? So that's kind of a shift that I've seen with the emergence of SaaS from that perspective. But, SDRs and BDRs, I mean, typically they get, they're not really, in most cases, not getting a commission. They're getting like a bonus. So we'll count their bonus, we'll count the number of appointments that they set as like a unit is the way we evaluate that. And we can onboard their plans and, they'll get, kickers and escalators and bonuses based on how much they go over quota for those appointments. So the last point I wanted to make here is that, it's time for all this to change, right? Everybody wins with transparency. The individual rep, the manager, the executives, the employer, the investors, the games that I have seen go on and the stories that I've heard are just, they're literally heartbreaking. They really are. It's like, waterfall clauses being, invoked. I've heard stories where reps were supposed to earn hundreds of thousands of dollars on a deal and the company turned around, invoked a clause and didn't pay them a dime. I've heard stories where they're getting paid half of what they're due or a quarter of what they're due. I mean, it literally will destroy your company doing this. You can't be short-sighted about this stuff. Treat people fairly and respectfully, and they will perform as you want to. If they overperform the plan, they should be rewarded for that, not penalized, and then adjust the plan the next year. I mean, reps get 10 to 20% commission rate on deals. That means that the company is keeping 80 to 90% of it all. So if a rep makes $1 million on a commission, the company's probably making 9 or 10 million. So I just don't understand where sort of these jealousies come in with these sort of short-sighted leadership that lack the ability to put themselves in the salesperson's seat and have empathy and understanding of where they're coming from and how they're interpreting, what they're seeing. When companies act this way, it literally destroys productivity. It destroys motivation. It destroys trust. It negatively impacts the reps' lives, and they bring that home with them and they carry that forward. And it's time for all this to change. And I am helping and want to help lead this charge and empower reps with the data and the information to stand up for themselves. So I think that's all I got here today. In summary, check your pay. I'll say one more thing. I have been so moved by the response of the LinkedIn community and people coming to speak to me that I never looked at it in these terms. And I literally get emotional sometimes when I talk about it. I have when I'm on the phone with folks. It's not me, it's them. They're coming to me and telling me that I'm literally helping to change lives. That when we find $20,000 for a rep that they weren't expecting to get, that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise, that for some people, this literally could be life-changing money. It could be the difference between sending a kid to college or not and changing the life trajectory. It could be the difference between, having money for a down payment on a home and building your own equity rather than paying someone else's mortgage. It could be a family vacation that you could take, adult children on or something, or your children on, and that you'll remember for the rest of your lives. This is your money. It's your right. You shouldn't be intimidated. You should stand up for it. You should check it, and you should recover all that's due to you. So that's all I have. I appreciate everyone's time. If anyone has any questions, I'd love to field whatever you folks have. Anybody? Anthony, you must have a question for me. Get him going, will you?
Yeah, I don't know. Circling back to what Scott had said, pushing back against a founder who wants to put together a really complicated, like 19-tier plan and overcomplicate things as a revenue leader, or as a sales manager. How do you justify having that simplicity? I think you sort of answered that, but I don't think we addressed that question specifically. But I think we had touched on how that making the plan simpler helps the reps, helps avoid errors, and helps the reps understand. But if you want to elaborate on that a little bit more, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I think that John did a really nice job mentioning that too on the call today, and I couldn't agree with him more. I mean, it's so unnecessary. Let's keep it simple. If you want to drive certain behaviors, you can easily do that and make it so that it's understandable and it's easy to track. You're just harming yourselves. You're causing confusion and frustration and doubt within your own team that's negatively impacting your business. And if you're having folks that are, running to the door as a result of lack of pay transparency and doubt, you're only hurting yourselves and your company. The amount of time that it takes to build up a rep and get them up and running and to recruit them and everything else, and then build up that pipeline. It could be 6 months to a year before they're as productive as the rep that you're chasing out the door. So everyone wins with pay transparency, and it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's also about accountability too. Like sales reps are always held accountable to meet their numbers and to drive business, but does the same go the other way around so that the businesses correctly compensate the reps? I think the accountability has to be two ways, and that's, I think, what we're trying to do here.
No, I agree with you. And one of the folks that we had a mutual call with said this very eloquently. They said, when it comes time to close a deal and figure out the profit and revenue that we're going to get out of the deal, the company micromanages everything you're doing to the penny. They have, looking over the shoulder, the big brother watching. But when it comes time to actually micromanage your pay for what the rewards of all your efforts, they literally throw it over the wall to you, tell that you're on your own. They give you no data, no reporting, no systems. It's just like night and day, and it's just wrong. So
yeah.
Anybody else? Anyone have any further comments, questions? No. Scott, you got anything you want to wrap up with, or?
No, I appreciate you taking the time with us and everybody for putting up with me as I'm carting around town. I'm just pulled into the parking lot. Looks like we're about to wrap up, which is totally fine. Sounds like there was some great questions, and this has been great. I just want to encourage everybody who's going to watch the replay of this to connect with Dan as well as Anthony on LinkedIn. Check out True Commish, upload your data, send them your comp plan, go through the process and just see what happens. It costs you absolutely nothing, in order to do that. And remember the message, like we deserve this. We've put in the work. We've closed these deals, right? And we're not putting anybody out. We're not going out of their way when we're asking for this kind of stuff. This is especially true, and I don't know if you covered this or not, but especially true, I think, the more complex type of sales that you're in, where there's resellers and different percentages based on the size of the account or different years and time periods, and something where there's confusion over what constitutes a deal versus not a deal, where there's fulfillment involved. Payment comes 90 days after you actually close the deal, all this kind of weird stuff. If you got any of that stuff going on, it's worth a look. So hope everybody who was here enjoyed it. Dan, Anthony, thanks for your time. See you all next time on Tequila Tuesday.
Thank you. It was a blast. Thank you, everyone.
All right, everybody. Bye.